everybody. If it is the afternoon, depending if you're online, you might be in a different time zone. But thank you so much for coming to our session. This session is focused on the combination of action research, HyFlex, and industry-focused communities of practice for IET. And so currently, my name is Destiny Simpson. I'm a consultant for World Education. I also work at a local adult education program in Pennsylvania. And my colleagues are all from the Washington, D.C. area. However, unfortunately, they weren't able to join us in person. And so if you're in person, you'll be able to see them on screen. If you're online, it should be very easy for you to see them. So I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves. So Michelle, do you want to start? We'll just go in the order of bullet points. So Michelle, if you want to start, and then Stacy.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michelle Johnson. I'm the State Director for Adult and Family Education at the D.C. Office of the State Superintendent of Education, Adult and Family Education.
Hi, everyone. I'm Stacy Downey. I'm also at DC OSSI Adult and Family Education.
Okay. Dr. Bruce?
Hey, I'm Dr. Heather Bruce, Director of the Adult Education Program at the University of the District of Columbia.
And Dr. Diagne?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Inde Diagne. I'm Senior Education Consultant and instructor at the University of the District of Columbia as well.
Hi, and I'm Megan Farrell. I'm Chief Learning Officer of Mustard Seed Training up here on the north coast of Ohio.
I'm so thankful to have the opportunity to work with these folks to help implement a project that they've been working on for several years, and I got brought in this past year. We're going to tell you a little bit about it. We hope that you ask questions as you have them. But we'd like to start with just some tips for a hybrid session. So many of you have been in hybrid sessions, either online or in person. But as we're doing our session, we hope to model some of the practices we hope our HyFlex teachers are doing. So if you're in person, we are going to ask you to use the microphone so that the online people can hear you. My colleague Sarah Weitzel is available, and she'll come to you with a microphone. You can join the chat in Who if you'd like, but you don't have to. If you're online, Sarah will be monitoring the chat, and she'll share your thoughts, or we can unmute you if you'd like. And if you're watching the recording, you can view the chat to see the discussion that took place. But everyone, as we're going throughout this, please feel free to ask questions, share your experiences, and contact us afterwards with any questions. So we'd like to start off by getting to know you a little bit better. So if you are online or in person, you can pull out your phone. We're going to use a tool called Poll Everywhere. It's similar to Mentimeter, Slido, if you've used any of those tools. And we just want to get a sense of who the audience is. So if you give us 1 second, I'm going to switch screens over here and pull up the Poll Everywhere so we can see the results. Okay, so it looks like we have a lot of, is it available for you to use? Okay. Will the QR code work when it's that little? If not, I can go back and bring it up. No, I can bring it up. Yep. So just a second here. And for those of you online or in person, you can just keep that Poll Everywhere tab open on your browser, because we'll be asking you a couple questions on it throughout the time. So this is a great tool to use with your learners, whether you're in person or online. It looks like we have a lot of administrators. We have a few teachers and tutors, some PD developers, state staff, and a few others. We know in adult ed, a lot of us wear a lot of different hats, so it's great to have you all here. So the next question I'm going to ask is, do you have any experience with integrated education and training? In the Washington, D.C. area, they refer to that as IENT. In some states, they call it IET. So if you hear it, they're both the same thing. Okay. So it looks like there's definitely some people that have experience and some that don't. And then our next question is, do you have you engaged in action research? Okay. So it looks like the majority of people in our session haven't, and that's fine. You'll get some great information about what action research is and see how it might be something you can implement in your practice. And then the final thing is, how familiar are you with HyFlex learning? So the percentages are a little wonky right now because I think it was set that people can pick more than one, and so that's why it's like 200. Oh, there, it resettled. Okay, good. So quite a few people are familiar with HyFlex. I'm gonna probably breeze over some of the HyFlex information, but all of the information will be in our slides, which will be uploaded to the Whova app. So great, thanks so much for helping us get a sense of, and this next question we're gonna hold off answering. So thanks so much for helping us get to know who you are a little bit better. I'm part of the IDEAL Consortium, as are the adult education providers and state office staff in Washington, D.C. The IDEAL Consortium is run by World Education, and it's a group of states who collaborate together to share ideas, best practices, as well as challenges and resources regarding digital education and distance education. So if you're from one of the states in red, that means that you're from a member state, and so you can talk to your state office or your state PD people, and they'll be able to put you in touch with resources that are available for that. If you're from a state that's not there, we'd love to have you join. It's usually your state office or your PD providers that decide that, but there's also a lot of resources that are available for states that aren't. And one of those is the HyFlex guide, which we're going to talk about. So by the end of the session today, we hope that you have a better understanding of Washington, D.C.'s, how adult ed is offered in Washington, D.C., that you learn more about the ARDL project, Action Research Distance Learning. If anything, and I know it's kind of late in the day for people that are here in person, we're going to be using a lot of letters, IET, ARDL, but we hope that you have some greater awareness of what we've learned by doing this project, and that you have a lot of resources that you can go back and use. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Michelle, who's going to tell us a little bit more about what adult ed is like in Washington, D.C.
Thank you, Destiny. Next slide, please. So as DC State Education Agency, the Office of the State Superintendent of Education is responsible for ensuring that children and teens and adults have equitable learning experiences, and we work in collaboration with local education agencies, community-based organizations, and other entities throughout the District of Columbia to provide education services, resources, and support to children, youth, adults, and families. Our division, which is the Adult and Family Education Unit, awards WIOA Title II funding, in addition to local funding that we receive through the City Council, to eligible providers of demonstrated effectiveness to provide integrated education and training services to DC residents. We also use our funding to facilitate state leadership activities, which includes professional development, technical assistance, and monitoring. We provide resources, whether that's information, assessment materials, and other types of resources to not only adult education providers, but training and workforce providers in the city, as well as some of our WIOA partner organizations. And then we maintain and report state and local program performance, student information, as well to the U.S. Department of Ed, city officials, other stakeholders throughout the District of Columbia to drive continuous improvement at the state and local program levels. WIOA Title II allows us to provide a host of services, those that you see on the screen. In 2017, we decided to fund providers to offer integrated education and training. Next slide, please. So there are three required components of integrated education and training. They include adult education and literacy activities, workforce preparation activities, and a variety of workforce training activities for a specific occupation or occupational cluster. And so you see those there. Next slide, please. As I stated, since 2017, we have funded 10 to 12 organizations that include local education agencies and community-based organizations to offer INT services aligned to the district's workforce investment council's high demand industries, and you see those on the screen as well. Next slide, please. These are our current subgrantees. These are 10 organizations located throughout the city that offer a host of integrated education training, supportive, and transition services to DC residents. Additionally, even though our office primarily funds those 10 organizations to offer INT, there are other LEAs and organizations throughout the city that also offer adult education services. And when you get this presentation, you'll be able to click on the link and learn more about these organizations. Next slide, please. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the Action Research Distance Learning Project, which we're so blessed to be partnering with the University of the District of Columbia, World Education, and Mustard Seed Training to make available to educators in our INT programs. Next slide, please. So Stacy Downey, who's also a member of my team, who's also presenting today, did a really beautiful job at designing this course for us in collaboration with all of the facilitators. And it really displays the various components of our project using a platform called Schoology. Next slide, please. So to talk a little bit about ARDL, we began this work in 2019, 2020 in collaboration with World Ed and the University of the District of Columbia. We have been doing action research for many years through our partnership with the University of the District of Columbia. But in 2019, we decided to blend action research and distance learning and provide funding to our providers to begin to embark upon the provision of hybrid learning for district residents in addition to place-based services. And so if that project focused on standards integration, technology integration, utilizing resources that we were making available to our local program providers to give them an opportunity to reflect on their practices and determine whether distance learning might help to improve our local program performance and student outcomes. This was a blessing to us. The pandemic hit in 2020. We didn't know that was coming, but our providers were well prepared to meet the needs of district residents because of all of the work that we had done with the University of the District of Columbia and World Ed to prepare them. In 2023, 2024, we decided to build upon that work, the distance learning plans, and have our providers to do an addendum so that they can begin to pilot HyFlex, which provides 3 modalities in which district residents can participate in INT programs. We also worked with Mustard Seed Training, Megan Farrell, to really do more structured professional development on infusing industry-focused standards, and she facilitated 12 communities of practice sessions for our providers. Megan introduced us to the community of inquiry, which we built upon and really helped us to enhance our educators' design of their lesson plans. And with the help of the University of the District of Columbia, we refined and developed a really phenomenal lesson planning and classroom observation workbook. And we also launched North Star Digital Literacy Implementation during this period as well. And all these activities are still ongoing today. Next slide, please. And the purpose of the project primarily was to expand INT, as I stated earlier, through the provision of HyFlex learning, provide our teachers with an opportunity to engage in action research, reflect on their practices, identify problems, and develop strategies to address them, to develop more purposefully standards-based industry-specific contextualized lesson plans, because it's our goal to create a repository of IENT lesson plans. And then we also wanted to give them an opportunity to collaborate with other IENT providers. So we brought the construction IENT providers together, the hospitality providers, the healthcare, et cetera. And then additionally, we wanted to increase student attainment of measurable skills gains and entry and industry recognized credentials, and to build a repertoire of research-based promising practices in the integration of HyFlex into IENT programs in DC. Next slide, please. And we provided funding to our providers to do this work. $10,500 was set aside for the Action Research Distance Learning Project activities. We asked each program to designate a team of 4 key personnel, a program director, academic instructor, vocational instructor, and 1 supportive team member. We provide those team members with a $500 to $1,200 stipend during their participation in the project each year. We also, as I stated, really wanted to work with them to engage in action research, to pilot those classes, to participate in those communities of practice, and to really expedite the implementation of North Star. So that's some of the key highlights. Next slide, please.
Michelle, can I interrupt you for a second?
Sure.
Because we have some state office staff, some program administrators, and for those of you that might not be in those roles, I think some key things that are really important about what Michelle's vision was for this project, as well as what her OSSE staff implemented, was money to fund professional development and time for teachers to do that. So some of the programs use some of those funds to pay for substitute teachers so that they could continue offering classes while the teachers participated in professional development. They could use that money to buy the technology they needed for their HyFlex class. And another thing that I think is really important is Michelle and the whole team, ARDL team, really cultivate a culture of experimentation and learning. That this was a time for them to pilot and see what works, a time for them to learn. And the final thing that I think is really impressive, which I haven't heard of a lot of programs doing, is that there was also funding for the students who participated in this, that they also could receive a stipend for their learning as well too. And so there was a lot of supports put in place that Michelle and her office had a vision of not only saying, hey, let's try HyFlex in IET, but also here's some supports that are going to be available to you.
Thank you, Destiny, for that. And so we could not have done this work without the assistance of the University of the District of Columbia, World Ed Ideal Consortium, and Mustard Seed Training. And so I'm pleased to give each of them the opportunity to share their role in the success of our project.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Heather Bruce. I'm delighted to bring you greetings from the University of the District of Columbia, which is honored to be instrumental in the use of action research to engage educators in a reflective, systematic, and rigorous process of solving real-world problems and issues in their classrooms in a customized way that creates and incorporates change at all levels. A unique characteristic of the action research methodology is its collaborative and participative nature that allows educators, administrators, and students to engage in a research process that collectively focuses on program and self-improvement. Next slide, please. Another is the practical and thoughtful cyclical process that involves planning, acting, observation and revisions, and reflection, and its inherent flexibility that allows researchers to return to the planning stage to adjust and to address incongruencies between data assessment results and targeted performance outcomes before engaging again in the action, observation, and reflection processes. Next slide, please. Excuse me. Data is key to the action research process. Educators use the existing program and student performance data records to identify and delimit their topic focus. Data sources from a related literature review assist the formulation and of the intervention, in addition to its planned research activities and strategies. And of course, frequent collection and analysis of data from multiple sources are used throughout the action stage of the project and to enhance research validity and reliability. Important to the planning stage is the development of a strong research question. Next slide, please. For your perusal, we have listed on the next 3 slides the research question developed by each of the 11 adult education programs that participated in the Action Research Distance Learning Project 2. Please note that though the integration of the HyFlex into the curriculum was common to all, each program asked a question that was particular to its own circumstances and challenges. I will now turn you over to Dr. Diagne. You're muted, Dr. Diagne. Dr. Diagne, you're muted. Okay.
Let me see if I can possibly unmute. 1 second here.
And
So Dr. Diagne, you are unmuted. Can you try speaking again? Okay, we can't hear you, so you might need to do a sound check on your device. I wonder.
Am I still muted?
Now we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry about that. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Dr. Bruce. On this slide, we can see that some of the research questions from our ARDL project 2 target key areas such as enhancing math proficiency and improving student engagement. And for example, I can go over one question that stated, how can we enhance math proficiency among students in the integrated education and training healthcare program by developing their digital literacy skills through the HyFlex model. Next slide, please.
Sorry, just
Can you hear me? Next slide.
You can stay on this one. This is the second one, Dr. Diagne.
Okay, because
Okay.
it was
Yes.
clear to me.
Okay.
Give me 1 second. Let me see
Okay.
if that's okay. Yeah, now I can see that one.
Okay.
Okay. One second. Let me make sure I can see that one. All right. On this slide, we can see that on this section, our providers examine how the HyFlex model can enhance student measurable. Oops. I think you went to the scenario.
It's
Okay. it keep jumping on my end. I don't know why. Okay, on this section, we can see that our provider examined the HyFlex model that can enhance student measurable skill gains and addresses challenges related to educational functional levels. For example, one of the questions was, how does the HyFlex model impact goal attainment and outcomes progression for HVAC student in the IET program? Next slide, please. All right. So talking about the action research, I know Dr. Bruce just talked to us about the process. So let's look at a scenario. And in this activity, we can see that we have 3 columns, like 2 columns, and one of them is divided into 2. So in this activity, the scenario we want to talk about today is it's a HyFlex class that includes both academic subject, literacy and math, and vocational training, which is like hospitality/serve safe food protection manager. And the instructor notices that the in-person student thrives during their engagement in hands-on activities, while the online students struggle with keeping up with the instructional content and being engaged while the in-person students are completing hands-on activities. So this is the scenario. It's always, and you're going to have access to this spreadsheet, it's part of the slides. You're going to see that instructors identify an area of growth or area of concerns or any challenge they have. And then the next step is to specify the problems. For example, here the problem or the issue is that we have online students who are disengaged during hands-on activities. And from there, the instructor will go ahead and formulate a research question that addresses the identified scenario, guiding the instructor in his or her inquiry into effective teaching strategies. So, and the research question based on the scenario is, what strategies can be implemented in the hospitality/serve safe food protection manager HyFlex class to ensure that online students feel included during hands-on activities? And formulating the action research question is very important. Why? Because the action research question should directly relate to the identified problem and guide the inquiry into the effectiveness of the strategies in addressing the challenges that have been identified. So we'll come back to the scenario because I'm going to turn this over to Destiny, who's going to talk to us about the HyFlex learning, and then we'll come back to this, the next step for this scenario. Destiny?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Diagni. So the term HyFlex is something that I'm guessing most of us in adult ed had never heard of until the pandemic in 2020. But it was a term coined by Dr. Brian Beatty. He's a professor at a community college, and he combined the words hybrid, which refers to both online and face-to-face teaching and learning activities, with flexible, with the idea that students could choose whatever format that they wanted to, with no learning deficit. And so there's 3 modes in HyFlex. There's the in-person instruction. Learners could also join online during the synchronous portions. That means just like what we're doing here. We have in-person people participating, we have online participants, but then HyFlex also adds a 3rd component, which is the online asynchronous. And that's the idea that adult learners, if they're not able to make it to the synchronous class, could still do some type of learning or activities that's focused on the same learning objectives that's being covered here, but that they wouldn't have to join the live class. And so there's those 3 components, and what we found in adult education is that the hybrid part, so the in-person and online asynchronous, was happening a lot. For the online asynchronous, that's a part that's still developing in our field in adult education, but programs are finding ways to creatively offer that through using curriculum, through watching parts of recordings of a class. So rather than sitting and watching a 3-hour class, you might watch parts of it and then have students do similar activities. There's 2 resources that are available from World Education that we wanted to share, and we talked about the IDEAL Consortium having resources for people that are from member states, as well as some that are available to everyone. And these are some resources that are available to everyone. The first is a HyFlex guide. This was written by David Rosen, Jen Vanek, and I. We interviewed adult educators across the country who were doing HyFlex to find out what they were doing, what they learned, and what they had yet to learn and are tackling yet as challenges. The other thing about this book is that there's vignettes that focuses on different programs. I think there's 10 of them that share what that program did, their approach to HyFlex, what they did to prepare to do that, and what they had yet to learn. We wrote this in a way that we hope is very easily digestible for adult educators. We know how busy you are, and so there's very short chapters with lots of resources, lots of links, and lots of real examples from adult ed programs. And this is available online. If you're in the Whova app, if you scroll down below, you'll see the PDF to that, but it's also available as a link. We'll post the slides so you can get it from there as well too. In addition to that, we developed a HyFlex video series. So we found that for a lot of teachers, including myself, it was hard to imagine what HyFlex looked like in general, and especially in an adult ed classroom. And so we videotaped and worked with Vi Haas. She's an adult educator in Pima, Arizona, and she taped herself doing parts of HyFlex lessons. So the first video shows her teaching a class that has online and in-person learners. The second video shows how she sets up her technology for the day, just so you can get a sense of like, well, how involved is it? The third video shows how she uses Poll Everywhere, which is the same tool we're using today, to do assessment, to kind of so you know, how are the online learners doing? It's easy for me in person to see how the in-person people are doing, but it's a great way for teachers to see how online learners are doing. The last two are technology tour videos. So there's a lot of different technology you can use for HyFlex. You may have heard the OWL camera, that's a popular option. But there's, we made a video from a teacher, Christine Dreeling in Minnesota, who uses something called a swivel camera. Vi uses 2 webcams kind of setup, and then she has 2 speakers. And so HyFlex technology can go from Vi's setup, where we're talking about webcams and some portable speakers, to you know, the full blown out, I have a mounted you know, microphones in the ceiling, and or I'm using an OWL projector and lots of other tools. But these videos kind of help you understand what HyFlex looks like and what you might need to get started. So in Washington, D.C., one of the things that's really unique about the providers that participated in this is that they were trying to figure out how to do HyFlex in IET. And so they're teaching learners things like welding, healthcare, business and hospitality. And so for some things you can imagine, when we talk about those 3 modes, there's certain points in time in IET training, especially the workforce training components, where somebody needs to hold a welding gun. So you can't learn to weld completely just by video or from your home and never have touched a welding gun before. But what the instructor did was create videos that showed some basics or safety information or some foundational information that students could watch before they came to class, and then they could spend their time using together doing the hands-on portion. So with HyFlex, what we found is that different adult ed programs do it differently. Some allow learners to choose what format they do every single day. Some allow them to choose, like, this is my primary way of coming, but if I find that I have a sick child, transportation, weather issues, I can switch to online or vice versa. Also, for IET, what we found is that for certain topics, it was really important for people to have a hands-on experience. So for healthcare, for example, there were some procedures that people needed to actually do on a person and practice using the real equipment. But there were also online scenarios, for example, talking to a patient, that Bria did, where they created an online scenario where there was a patient there. The person had to pick, like, how would you respond to the patient's questions? And so they were really creative. The DC providers were very creative in trying to find out ways to make HyFlex work with IE&T. And so in the scenario that Dr. Diagni introduced, in this, and thinking about technology, a lot of times our HyFlex providers were using things like Zoom or some sort of webinar platform for the learners to all join synchronously. They had tools such as they might use something like an online Google Doc activity that the asynchronous learners could work on when they're working on it, or in-person learners and synchronous learners could work on it during the live class. And then also, when we talk about hardware, students oftentimes will log into the class, even if they're in person, so that they can interact with the online learners as well as participate in the skills. Because one of the things we want to make sure, and this is true for if you're doing HyFlex or not, is if you have in-person learners, we want to make sure that they're also building their digital literacy skills too. And so we didn't want just the online learners to be able to do, to be building their digital skills, but if you're coming online, we wanted to make sure that was across the board. And so at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Megan, who's going to talk about the communities of inquiry.
Thanks so much, Destiny, and everyone for being here, both in person and online. So just in terms of structure, thinking about how we were doing this, throughout the fall, folks participated in classes about HyFlex to better understand what it was so that they could initiate their pilot. And then in the spring, we convened their community of practice by industry so that they could talk more specifically about what this was going to look like in the classroom, to troubleshoot with each other, to share some of the things that were going well, and also get ideas from each other. So we clustered folks into these 4 industry clusters that you see on the left, based on the number of folks we could get. Some of them were smaller or larger than others. And then every month we would meet these 4 groups to talk about a specific element of community of inquiry that I'll be sharing with you in a moment. So that's those monthly meetings and assignments. But they started off this process by submitting a draft lesson plan. And then they were working step by step through the lesson plan to submit at the end. Considering that the lesson plan would be indicative not only of one day in time, but that it would represent the instructional routines and especially the technology that folks would be implementing throughout their HyFlex pilot. We also allowed providers to participate who were not part of the HyFlex pilot. So we had to be very flexible to try and make this something that was going to be beneficial for all of the AFE providers in DC, whether they were participating in the HyFlex pilot or they were doing IET in a hybrid or distance setting. And so if we can go, I guess the final point here is that we did provide feedback, also a feedback loop, to folks about their lesson plans as we went along. I'm sorry, we can move along to the next slide. So we chose the community of inquiry framework to guide our lesson plan revisions because it was developed in 1999 to assist e-learning. I think I'm so loud that I'm hearing myself echo every time I talk. So it was developed to assist in e-learning to make sure that the kind of presence that you experience in an in-person class is something that you can measure and increase, even if you're not physically face-to-face. So, however, the community of inquiry framework can also be applied in in-person instruction as well. So the concept is there are 3 presences in every educational experience. Your cognitive presence, which connects the learner to the content. The teaching presence, which connects the learner to the instructor. And then the social presence, which connects the learners to each other. We can move on to the next slide. So the community of inquiry body of research has broken these three presences into a series of categories that can be assessed by a survey or observed throughout the course of an educational experience. And the research on this has shown us which types of presence are most strongly connected with which types of outcomes. So this was very helpful for the folks who are doing action research. They had their question in mind, and then they could focus on the area of presence that was going to be most closely connected to the outcomes they wanted to see. So every month we did February, March, April, focusing on one of each of these presences. And then if we can move to the, great. Then we were also reflecting not only how do you build this presence, but also how do you keep it strong, just as Destiny was saying, in all of these settings, the in-person, the online synchronous, and then the asynchronous with your cat. And our recommendation is to start with the asynchronous. So then, and then work back in the lesson plan to make sure then that those asynchronous folks and synchronous and in person were all connecting with the same activities, often by shared use of technology, like Poll Everywhere. We can go to the next.
So we're going to go back to using Poll Everywhere. You can scan the QR code. It probably should still be up on your phone, but I'll leave that up just for a second. I'm going to pull over the window, so if you just give me a second here, I'll do that.
All right, so this was one of our reflection questions that we also would ask you. We do have many folks here who are participating online and in person who have experience with HyFlex. So this would be a great opportunity for you to share back with us and other participants in the session. What are some things that you do to make sure that there is a presence, whether that's social between learners, whether that's between instructors and learners, that will help them connect regardless of which mode they choose to participate. I believe this is an open answer question, so might take a little bit to respond. But I don't know, Destiny, if there is anyone in person or if we have on chat any live responses. Or
feel free if you'd like to, if you're in person, to share. Oh, do I need to do something? Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Okay, sorry about that.
there we go. These are great. Serving students, student introductions, using students' names, very important in any setting. Interactive digital tools. Using combination of techniques, absolutely. So we'll let a couple more come in and then continue on. Oh, and definitely helping the students. One thing I should point out as well is that the DC programs also were able to nominate folks who are working in student support to participate in the pilot and in this process. And they're critically important to make sure that students are really able to connect, whether that's technically or physically, to participate. That's really excellent. Awesome. So if we can move on to the next. Oh. All right, and we can actually move to the next one as well. It's just kind of a visual to help you see that connection. So our next slide gives us an actual example pulled from that scenario that we were discussing earlier about food service managers and connecting to technology. So we had all of the providers look at ONET online. Many of them are also using industry-focused standards, but some of them, especially the ones who are focused on adult basic education, may not have been as familiar. So ONET was a great tool for folks to really focus on that cognitive presence and really building those skills, focusing on the industry-focused skills. One of the examples under food service manager was the Office Suite software. And this is also marked an in-demand hot technology. So that was the specific standard that they chose to focus on in their lesson plan. And then in the lesson activities, they were assigning students restaurant work involving Microsoft Office, and then making sure to do that in a way that students could submit and get feedback, whether they were asynchronous, synchronous, or in person. And they also used North Star Digital Literacy Online Learning, which have specific lessons and modules that build the skills in Microsoft Office, all in the context of that industry. So that's just one example of one of the lesson plans that was developed through this process. But everybody was using this opportunity to reflect on these modules. And then there was some follow-up, which I believe my other colleagues will talk about the support and technical assistance that were provided for them.
So I want to make sure we have enough time to get to lessons learned. And so,
Yes.
Megan, it looks like you have two more presidents to talk. And then Dr. Diagni and Dr. Bruce, I'm wondering if you can quickly run through your slides so we make sure we give Michelle and Stacy enough time to talk about the lessons learned.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that some of the reflections that we've had already, folks seem to be kind of getting, what the presences are. So we can actually, if you don't mind, go through these last two slides. And I believe we're back to, yep.
Okay, thank you so much. Here, what we have on this slide is our lesson plan development and classroom observation process. So basically, what this process is indicating is everything, the steps that we follow from the lesson planning all the way to the classroom observation, and the last step is debriefing. Very important things here I want to note is that you can see that it's a continuous and ongoing process supported by technical assistance. Next slide, please. And in regard to our lesson plan, we have three different components that create our effective lesson planning. And that's what is captured on this slide: the lesson plan template, lesson plan rubric, and the lesson plan checklist. And all these are aligned, and that's what our instructors use in order to ensure that the lesson is well structured, measurable, and subject to continuous improvement. Next slide, please. And you can see here the different component of our lesson plan that is, that have the instructional background, the instructional focus, and also the standard Megan just talked to us about regarding how the instructor will use to guide the instructional practices, ensuring educational strategies are relevant and aligned with both academic and vocational goals. Next slide, please. And these are the three components of our classroom observation: the pre-observation template, the classroom observation rubric, and the debrief, and the post-observation debrief. Next slide, please. One important thing about our pre-observation template is in addition to having the background information such as instruction name, so on and so forth, it identifies also the number of students who participate in person, online, synchronous, and asynchronous, and which prepare both the instructor and the observer for a productive evaluation. And in addition to that, it includes also resources ensuring a smooth observation process. Next slide, please. And in regard to the rubric here, what we have is the rubric. You will see that it outlines 5 domains that are very important, that include instruction, which set the stage, engagement, modeling, assessment, and also reflection to guide self-directed learning. Next slide, please. And this is our post-observation template and debrief. In this template, it provides a structured approach for gathering feedback from the instructors' practices, and so highlighting both success in the area of growth or improvement, and the instructor will have opportunity to share, student progress and any developmental goal. And, also during the debrief, it encourages the instructor to discuss or identify continuous professional development and refinement of teaching strategies. Next slide, please. And this is the last steps. I know Destiny talked to us about the HyFlex learning, and Megan just went through the 3 presences are very, very important. In addition to that, also the standards, making sure that all the lesson plan are standard-based lesson plan. And the last step was for the instructor to identify activities that will help address the challenges. If you remember, the scenario has to do with online students who are disengaged, and the instructor decided to provide like pair share and small group activities that will allow students to participate and discuss in discussion, and then provide also feedbacks to enhance, to bring the gap between the in-person and the online learners, creating a more cohesive learning environment. And finally, provided a wrap-up based on exit ticket, poll, or survey. And those are just to encourage students to reflect on class material and prepare for the next section. And using all these 3 different strategies, the instructor created a dynamic and encouraging educational experience that address the challenges of the student engagement. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Johnson, who's going to share lesson learned for us.
Thank you so much, Dr. Diagne. So just some observations and lessons learned during the implementation of this innovative project last year and this year. We do recognize that a lot of our INT instructors who have been doing this work for a while, since we started implementation in 2017, they feel really confident about their ability to offer these services. But we did realize that the provision of professional development and technical assistance is needed with regards to their transitioning and being more effective in integrating HyFlex instruction into their instructional programs, as well as really helping them to utilize the funds that we provide them to get sufficient resources, whether that be laptops or software or whatever is needed for them to increase student engagement and equitable learning experience for both the in-person and online synchronous students, as well as the asynchronous students. Technology integration is key. We had to be when they submit their budgets to us for review on an annual basis prior to putting the data in our information into our online grants management system. So we do a great job of looking at the expenditures, having conversations with them about what they need in order to do the work. And so that's important that we work hand in hand with them to plan the integration of HyFlex, to participate in and observe what they're doing, and to engage in continuous feedback with them, as well as providing them with the needed professional development. We always tell them we're not looking for perfection. We just want them to just keep on trying. And that's how we've been able to influence change in the city. And then lastly, so all PD encompasses the state staff, encompasses our PD providers who are part of this, so pivotal to our work, and include representatives at all levels in the organization that we fund, so the continuous improvement is occurring throughout our work. And hopefully our goal is maybe to have an impact on some of our WIO core partner organizations as well, to want to embrace this type of professional development and continuous improvement activity. Next slide, please. Some of the voices of our students, I mean, we know that their voice, their perspectives really help drive what we do, what we don't do. One student said it feels more private since just a few folks are coming in person, that they can engage more in class, and they feel that they learn a lot instead of just being engaging via online, using the Zoom platform, or in person. Another person stated that they think when they have a HyFlex class in person with smaller classes, their engagement is top tier, that they love small classes. Sometimes it's hard to get heard in the bigger classes. So they have a variety of perspectives that we really take into consideration. I like the last student said that it's a good thing when they get to choose HyFlex, and that they can balance what's going on at home and their classroom responsibilities, work, etc. That's all important. Next slide, please. Keeping track of the time.
Sorry.
Next slide. Okay. Okay. Want to share with you our goal in with the Action Research Distance Learning Project is always increase student outcomes and increase local program performance. And so since implementing the project, our the number of students who made a measurable skills gain increased from 54.73% to 63.68%. The number of students that earned industry recognized credentials was at 29.24% and increased to 40.55%. So we continue to collect the data and celebrate and honor our providers as they embark upon this journey toward continuous improvement. Next slide, please. Out of in 22-23, we had 863 students earn 1,131 credentials. In FY 23-24, we had 801 students to earn 1,325 credentials. And this is a combination of entry-level and industry-recognized credentials, but we're really proud of our providers, again, taking it one step at a time, identifying problems, researching them, and coming up with proposed solutions to improve the quality of the IET services we're providing to DC residents. Next slide, please. This is just some feedback, some benefits of the Action Research Project for adult educators. This really empowers them to make change in their classrooms. Because it's a team, the entire ARDL team members can make change in the INT program overall. Teachers are able to pilot, come up with hypotheses about potential resolutions to problems and issues, and it also really is powerful for them to make learning more exciting and fun and meaningful for adult learners. Next slide, please. Some of, okay, okay. Some of the benefits to learners is increased flexibility, the ability, also they have opportunities to enhance their digital literacy skills using a variety of digital tools. And what's most important to me is that irrespective of what's going on in the universe, students have multiple ways of participating in INT programs. And we are, really grateful to our students, and that's why we incentivize their participation for helping us, giving us the data and sharing with us their experiences as well, so we can continue to learn and grow. Next slide. And then some of the benefits to providers. Most importantly, our providers, we collect a lot of data. But what's most importantly, they can use this data to get more funding for their work. In addition to the funding that we're providing them, they're experiencing increased student outcomes. And, really the more, to me, the more that they engage in professional development, technical assistance, the higher, I think what we saw this past year is that for the first time in 23-24, we had 11 providers. 6 of those 11 achieved 5 of 6 performance metrics, and then the other 5 achieved 6 of 6. So, oh my God, that is phenomenal. We have never seen that kind of, that number of outcomes being met by all 11 providers, so that's huge. Next slide, please. Stacy?
Thank you, Michelle. I think in the interest of time and questions, I would just say that we have provided you so many resources. The beauty of Action Research is that you are the expert and your students who are participants in Action Research are also the experts. So we've just provided you lots and lots of links, timeline of how we did it, so many slides, just such an abundance of resources, like as abundant as the cherry blossoms are here in DC right now. So I think let's go to the, I would skip the resources from there, and you have everything in the packet in WOVA.
I will get our contact information back up. But at this point in time, thank you so much to all the online presenters. We're sorry you couldn't be here in person like we originally planned. Are there any questions online or in person? And so we'll come around with the mic.
Hi, this is Christine from Idaho. Michelle, I met you last week online. Thanks again.
Hey, Christine.
Hi, thank you for letting me know about this today. Thank you to the presenters. It's just really great what you're doing there, and I want you to come to Idaho and replicate it for me. I did wonder, in Idaho, all of our ITs, it'd be rare that we wouldn't have 2 instructors. And so how did that work for you, collaborating, getting them to just the part with the HyFlex? How did that work with your instructors?
Well, Christine, so wonderful to hear your voice, and thank you for the opportunity to meet last week. And so excited for you and the work you're going to be embarking upon in Idaho. We decided to engage other members within the organization, such as the intake specialists or the folks that help, the technology specialists. Like, trust and believe, we're having the same problems here, but by involving other individuals in the program, formulating the team, having them to work together, that really helped to make a difference. Would anyone else on the team like to add anything to that? No?
That makes sense,
Okay.
though, that,
Okay.
yeah, just to get your, just get everybody going on that and collaborate with the team that you already have. Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're welcome.
Great. Any other questions or comments? We have another in-person question.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm just wondering, did you identify any specific professional development needs in implementing HyFlex programs that came out of that?
I can take that question if that's
Sure.
okay. All right.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, often programs start with what technology should I use? And while that's certainly important, I think part of it is thinking about who are the learners that you're trying to target and why are you trying HyFlex? In terms of professional development, teachers needed trained in the technology, in lesson planning for HyFlex, in teaching strategies for how to manage in-person online learners, how to think about the online asynchronous part. And so Dr. Diagni, Dr. Bruce, and the OSSI team and Megan really worked with them to look at lesson planning and how to make sure that engagement was there, how to make sure your objectives are still really present and addressed for all three modes, and how is that engagement still there, the presence that Megan mentioned. But definitely technology. The HyFlex Guide is a great starting resource for learners who are thinking, or I'm sorry, teachers that are thinking about HyFlex. We also have an online crash course, that crash course being like it's about 30 minutes for people just to get introduced what is HyFlex, and so that's a great way for people to be introduced to what that is. So HyFlex, what we found from the work with DC, as well as the people we interviewed for the guide, and also some work that we did with an adult school in San Diego, is that training teachers and support for them is really important, not only before but during, as they go along and progress. So, yeah.
And Destiny, I think it's also important to start with the plan, right? Because before, like, developing the plan within each organization, the team of individuals developing is a great starting point, because you got to figure out, what do you want to do? What does it look like? So we were so blessed when we participated in that ideal 101 course first, so we've been at this for a while. We didn't just get to HyFlex. We started with World Education Ideal Consortium and took baby steps along the way. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for those of you that are watching online or watching the recording. Thank you for those that are in person. I'll be around if you have any questions. Our contact information, I'll upload the slides later on tonight so that you'll have that contact information, but it's also available in the Whova app. So thanks so much. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.